Welcome back to Quick Bits. I'm recording on the road this week, but there are some big updates in Murdaugh and in Leah Remini versus Scientology that we need to talk about because that's what I covered last week. Let's get into it. I'm legal analyst Emily D. Baker. This is the Quick Bits, where I break down just the main points of the pop culture and entertainment cases I'm currently covering on YouTube and the Emily Show podcast. Let's get into it. On Tuesday, January 16th, Alec Murdaugh was back in court in South Carolina to see what's going to happen with his motion for new trial. Remember, Alec Murdaugh is accusing the clerk of court, Becky Hill, of tampering with the jury, of having inappropriate conversations with the jury. And we saw Justice Toal, former Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court, presiding over that hearing. Justice Toal ruled that a hearing will happen. The judge will do the questioning. All of the Murdaugh jurors are coming in to be questioned at this hearing starting on January 29th, and Clerk of Court Becky Hill will be called to testify. Whether or not the clerk will take the fifth, that will be determined question by question. So you're not going to want to miss those hearings. I'm covering those on my long form channel, gavel to gavel, as those hearings go down to determine if Alec Murdaugh will get a new trial. But the big ruling from the judge was that not only does Team Murdaugh need to prove that conversations happened with the jurors, but needs to prove that those conversations impacted the verdict, which is a harder standard for him and his team to meet, which reduces the likelihood that he will get a new trial. But we will see what the jurors have to say. We will see what the clerk of court has to say. And then we will see what Justice Toal determines about whether or not Alec Murdaugh must have a new trial because his constitutional rights were violated. So you have to stay tuned on that. It's going to be a fascinating hearing. On the Emily Show podcast, I did a deep dive catching us all up with what's going on with Leah Remini versus Scientology. There was a hearing in that case on Tuesday, January 16th in Los Angeles. The judge had issued a tentative ruling in that case that was very positive for Leah Remini, with a few things that were a win for Scientology. But Scientology filed an anti-Slapp motion, which is seeking to throw out the entirety of Leah Remini's lawsuit against them, and that is unlikely to happen. So when that final ruling comes in from the court after hearing oral argument, I will be covering that on the channel. Also, Leah Remini had moved to exclude a previous judge, so this is the judge they're going to be with, and there's a lot of litigation over whether or not David Miscavige will be served in this case. So far, his team is arguing that the subpoenas that were served at Scientology locations are not sufficient to serve him personally in this lawsuit. So right now, the only responding defendants are the church and the technology center. We will see what happens from there, but it's unlikely this anti-Slapp suit is going to get things thrown out. We are at the beginning of a lot of voluminous documentary litigation. It is going to be the anti-Slapp. I wouldn't be surprised if when and if David Miscavige is brought into this case, that he also files an anti-Slapp motion. Then we will probably have motions to dismiss. Then we will have answers and potentially cross complaints. Then we will have discovery fights. Then we will have subpoena fights. Then there will be deposition fights. And then they will get to summary judgment fights. The litigation in this case is going to be extensive. And that's what we've seen from the thousands of pages already filed. But the judge did have a word for all of the lawyers in this case on both sides. And in his minute order right before the hearing on the anti-Slapp motion, the judge said enough is enough. There are too many motions. There is already too much fighting. And some of the things that are being filed are not even proper to be filed with regard to this motion. Please stop burying me in paper. That last part was summarized. Enough is exactly what the judge said. That case is not going to slow down anytime soon, and I will continue breaking it down over on The Emily Show. And at the end of the week, there's a reel up on this channel and on Instagram. Alec Baldwin has been indicted by a grand jury for the fatal shooting of Helena Hutchins in the Rust case. We haven't broken down that entire indictment yet, but it's not very different from the first one. He's been charged again with involuntary manslaughter. The district attorneys released a statement that I saw in Variety that indicate that their new forensic evidence goes against what Alec Baldwin said happened, and that the trigger must have been pulled and the hammer must have been back for that weapon to fire. So Alec Baldwin is not free from consequences in the Rust case, and that's going to start moving into litigation shortly. Because he's been indicted by grand jury, there will be no preliminary hearing, and it will move towards trial. But those are the quick bits for this week because it was a travel week. Hopefully now you're all up to speed, and I will see you in the next one. for deep dives into the stories that I covered here. You can find them on my YouTube channel at The Emily D. Baker and The Emily Show podcast. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. The podcast goes live on Wednesdays. And if you want to stay in the loop with everything I'm doing, receive the fastest notifications out there, and get more Law Nerd community, join me at lawnerdapp.com, our free app for iOS and Android.